Okay, so we should be live.
All right,
And
great.
welcome to the wonderful Leila Sales. Wow, I'm so honored. I'm really honored. I'm just delighted to have you on the program. And before I forget, I'm going to mention the name of the program because then I always forget. So I'm Mel Rosenberg, and I am the host of the Children's Literature Channel of the New Books Network. And I'm here with the wonderful Leila Sales, who wears several hats. I mean, you don't see it in the video, but trust me. She's a famous children's author, and she's an editor, and she's now the chief honcho at I don't know if honcho is a good word for a Jewish publisher, but you're the you're the big shot at Carbon Publishing, which is a highly regarded publisher mainly of Jewish children's books. And Lila, welcome. We have so much to talk about.
Thank you for inviting me on. I'm really glad to be here.
So let's start with your new job, chief
Yes.
honcho. I mean, the official,
That's
the
my
official,
official title, Chief Honcho.
yeah, you're the editorial director. But essentially, if I understand correctly, you're the one now who decides what books get published in Carbon and what
Yes.
the direction of the publishing house is going to be.
Yep.
And like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah,
So talk to us.
it's a big responsibility and I feel like I'm still getting a handle on it. I just started at Carbon a few months ago. Um, and most of my first few months have been uh just learning everything that's going on, right? Like, learning all of our internal systems, of course, and like learning who everybody is. Carbon is an imprint of Lerner, which is really great because we get to specialize in publishing children's books, but we get the support, the sales and marketing, and all of the efficiencies of a larger publisher. Uh, right, but it being, so there's so much to learn. And then also, of course, I stepped in and I inherited a lot of books that were all in various phases of production. So, Carbon has been publishing about 6 books a season. We have 2 seasons per year. So, yeah, so I came in and inherited about 18 books that were in various forms of production. So yeah, so it's been a lot to come up to speed on, and I'm only sort of just now starting to turn my attention to um, figuring out what my vision is for the list going forward, and what my acquisitions plan is going to look like. Um,
Have you
so it's
acquired
exciting.
anything? Yeah.
I've acquired a small handful of things for, let me see, I guess my first acquisitions are for fall 2027. The list was almost like it had been almost entirely acquired, but we needed a Hanukkah book, so I acquired one, which I think is like really fun and uh, fantastical. It's gonna have really cute setting, really fun illustrations. So I got a Hanukkah book, and then maybe that's all I got for fall. And then so far I've acquired 2 books for spring 2028. One is a Jewish values books. It's about sort of mm, it's about a girl who, I don't know if I'm yet allowed to say, the authors of anything or whatever, so I'm just being very vague.
My job is to get you to say these things and then
Yeah.
regret them. So that's
Yeah. Um, yeah, it'd probably be fine, but anyway, one is a Jewish values book, and which is, just I like really empowering. It's it shows a girl with a lot of agency. She has really clear goals. She encounters some hardships, but and then the other one that I've acquired for spring 28 is historical fiction, and it's about the first Jews who came to America.
Hmm.
So yeah, but I still need to acquire a bunch more for spring 28 and then
Okay.
start looking towards fall
So
28.
so thousands of people, aspiring writers, are waiting for you to spill the beans.
Yeah.
Spill.
All right. What do you want to know?
What are you looking for?
Okay. Um, so in terms of category, we mostly do picture books. We occasionally do middle grade novels. We occasionally do graphic novels, chapter books, um, and occasionally we do board books. But primarily, the bread and butter of Carbon is picture books, and it's fiction and nonfiction. Um, I personally am drawn to I like plot. Like I'm a person who reads for story. And I like character. So what I'm drawn to is a character who's, sort of immediately likable, relatable in some fashion, who has something that they want. They have a goal, they have a motivation, and there's some obstacle standing in their way of why they can't have that thing immediately, and then that they exercise their personal agency in order to go out and try and achieve that thing. And then by the end of the book, maybe they do achieve it, or maybe they find something else that is equally satisfying along the way and learn that their original goal is not actually what they needed. And to me, that's the structure for pretty much all books, regardless of age group. Um, and I want to be I want readers to be in some sort of suspense, even if it's very silly and the stakes are very low. I want there to be some sort of suspense of how is the main character going to solve this problem. You think about like the John Klassen book, I Want My Hat Back. And it's such a great example of this. If you just start out with you have a character and he has a want, he wants his hat back. And the thing sitting in his way is he doesn't know where his hat is. So he goes out in search of the hat. And you, the reader, you don't know if he's going to find it, how he's going to find it, what he's going to do about it. And the way that he actually does go about finding it, of course, is completely unexpected and delightfully naughty. But yeah, for me, that's sort of the core. And then, of course, there are exceptions to that, right? There are some books, particularly board books, but sometimes picture books as well, that are just sort of more atmospheric and setting a scene. Can be hard to do um, a full narrative arc in the 12 pages of a board book. Um, I have acquired one board book as well, which is a Sukkot board book. Um, and that's my other fall 27 acquisition. And that is much more it's walking you through the steps of it's a beautiful fall day and we're building a sukkah. But I wouldn't say there's a lot of conflict in there. Nothing is standing in the way of these toddlers building a sukkah.
No,
Um,
no tornadoes waiting on
yeah, no,
page 15. No.
we don't get to page 15, so because it's a board book,
Uh,
it's real
okay.
short. So imagine if you got to page 15, who knows? Could be tornadoes. Um, so yeah, so mostly that, and then I like books that are fun, often that are funny, that are whimsical, fantastical. The beauty of a book is you don't have to be tied down to the realities of world and the practical limitations that we have, right? So there's no a picture book that's a kid and a parent sitting at a dining room table, um, and discussing rhetorical situations. Like, to me, that feels like sort of a waste. I don't want to see
Mhm.
illustrations of them sitting around at a kitchen table. I want to see the kid out there experiencing uh, those situations that for us people stuck in reality can only be in our imagination.
Oh, I love that. But you have had a varied career
Yes.
as an editor.
Yep.
You've worked at major publishers such as Penguin Random House. Who did you work with at Penguin Random House?
So I was at Viking Children's Books for more than a decade, and Viking is an incredible place because it's been around for, um, gosh, at this
Since the
point, it's probably,
Vikings.
yeah, yeah, it's been around since the Vikings. No, at this point, it's probably been around like 85 years. I don't know, because I was there when it turned 75, maybe longer. Um, anyway, just an incredible backlist of Corduroy and Ferdinand and the Snowy Day and Madeline and more recently
My
Llama
my
Llama and
my favorite. Madeline is
Madeline's your
my
favorite?
favorite.
I love
Absolutely.
Madeline. Yeah, my publisher had like an original beautiful work of like framed art and oil painting that Ludwig Bebelmans had done that hung in her office. It's just such a, such a storied place. Um, so yeah, while I was there, I managed some of Viking's backlist properties. So I managed new publishing for Corduroy and for Angelina Ballerina and Ferdinand and Ezra Jack Keats.
Just show everybody the corduroy book you edited.
I did show you
Fantastic.
before. So this is a corduroy book that I did with Viola Davis, the actress, and uh, because yeah, I was in charge of corduroy, and we were trying to figure out new publishing. I think it was Corduroy's 50th anniversary, and I was trying to think what would be fun for it. And then I read this article that said Viola Davis was they were interviewing, it was in People magazine or Entertainment Weekly, and they were interviewing famous actors about their favorite children's books, and Viola Davis said hers was Corduroy. So I was like, incredible. Reached out to her agent and said, does she want to write a new Corduroy book? Um, so that was really fun. Um, but yeah, I edited the Last Kids on Earth series by Max Brallier. We worked together for many, many years. I edited a few books by Gail Forman. Um, I, you and I were talking about how I edited Alan Silberberg's first book. Um, and I edited some books by Greg Pizzoli, Amy Dykman. Um, I don't know, I could just keep listing names. And then of course a bunch of other people as well. I um various, series and standalones. It was a great job. Yeah.
Fantastic. So here's the now we're going to get to the nitty gritty. Then we're going to talk about Lila as an author.
Great.
Um, so there is this dilemma
Mm-hmm.
for authors, and I'm going to bring it out into the open,
Do it.
which is some people say you have to write to a market.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes sense because if I write a book about Pesach and you're interested in Hanukkah, you're not going to buy my Pesach book, even though it's a fantastic Pesach book.
I'm sure it is.
Um, yeah, and no, I don't have, but I said I just this is
But theoretically I'm sure it would be.
yeah, if I had a Pesach book, um, and I don't subscribe to this
Mm-hmm.
because this is my experience, and you can shoot me down. The moment that you, as an editor or an author, anybody, write to a purpose, a goal, a
Mm-hmm.
reason, a motif,
Mm-hmm.
a belief, you're not going to get the story right.
Mm-hmm.
So you have this, you talk about you want to get really good stories, but if you say to me, Mel, I need a good Hanukkah. Well, I mean, you have now a Hanukkah story. Give me another holiday.
Purim.
Purim. You need a good Purim story. By the way,
Yeah.
I have one. But if you're looking for a Purim, if I sit down to write a Purim story today for
Mm-hmm.
Leila Sales,
Yeah.
it's not going to be a really good Purim book because I'm driven by a certain, I just can't go wild.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
I can't invoke my subconscious, my unconscious, my semi-conscious. I'm thinking Purim, Purim, Purim. Lila, Lila, Lila. What is she
Yeah.
interested in? Oy
Yeah.
vey.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then I have more questions. So answer this one.
Yeah. Okay, so what you've said has brought up a bunch of thoughts for me. So the first thing I'm going to say is I agree that when you go in with something you're trying to say, uh, I I think that often is not going to lead to a great story. But I think where I notice it more is when authors this happens a lot in children's books, and it's when authors feel like they know something that a child should know. Uh, and so then they're just trying to figure out, how do I arrange this story so that by the end of it, the child knows the thing that I know. Uh, and that's how you wind up with a lot of books that are, or a lot of stories that are just a kid sort of sitting there while, a wise old Bubby or Zadie tells them, the truth of the world. Um, and I think it's far more interesting to go in with, rather than, here's something I know, here is a motif or an idea that I want to explore. And maybe I don't know the answer yet either. But through the process of writing this book and you reading this book, we're going to discover some possibilities together. So I feel that quite strongly. Um, in terms of the, writing for the market, I think it's a hard question and sort of a nuanced one, I'm going to say, because it's when you start to get into the distinction between writing as art and writing as commerce, and which is something that editors and agents have to be really fluent in, that because we are the editors and agents are the roles that translate back and forth between the author and the illustrators, the creatives, and the sales and marketing team or the business people. Which is not to say that sales and marketing people don't love books. They do. That's why they're in those roles. But their jobs depend upon selling those books. And by the way, agents and editors' jobs also depend upon selling those books. If you're an agent and you love a book, but you can't sell it, you don't get paid. And if you're an editor and you love books, but you're not thinking at all about how they're going to perform in the market, eventually you're going to lose your job, because you have to be bringing in books that are going to sell enough copies to justify the
I,
expense of
I know,
making
I
them.
know, I know this from my agents.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't send me any more Bubba and Zeta books.
Yeah.
Can't, can't sell them. Get a life.
Because every Bubby and Zadie wants to write a book about themselves.
There
Um,
you go. There you go.
they want to be the stars. Of course they do. And we all want to be the star of a book. Um, every story, whatever story is happening, I want to be the star of it. I'm not unique in this. Um, so right, so and I think this sort of goes along with one of my broader philosophies, which is that I believe that everybody is a writer, can be a writer, arguably should be a writer, that there's inherent value in writing. I do not believe that everybody is, should be, can be a published writer. I think those are two very different things. And I do think when you're drafting, you think about just being in the story. But when you're working towards publication, that's going back through it with the idea of what does the reader want out, who is my reader, where does this sit in the market, what are my comp titles, the businessy stuff that I have to think about in order to acquire a book.
So when I'm writing,
Mm-hmm.
right, this is, how do you say in English? Anathema
Yeah.
for me to think about who wants my book, who's going to buy my book. I just write the bloody book.
Yeah, great, yes.
And then most of my books are not ever going to be sold, and that's perfectly fine. But I mean,
Yeah.
if I start writing because because books about Tarzan are in fashion, or
Yeah.
dinosaurs or race, nobody's, it's not going to be a good book. So now we kind of understand that. What is, the biggest benefactor or philanthropism of Jewish books in America is the PJ Library.
Yes.
And Carben and Kalaniot and the other Jewish
Mm-hmm.
publishers,
Mm-hmm.
they kind of depend on PJ
Mm-hmm.
to pick, let's say, one book out of three, one book out of five.
Mm-hmm.
It's a statistical thing, right?
Yep.
But then you have like tens of thousands of books, and the book becomes all of a sudden profitable.
Yep.
How much does that influence? Like, are you looking at this Hanukkah submission and say, oh, PJ might take that one?
Yes. I am, and it's really interesting to me. My background is not in Jewish publishing. And when I was at Penguin, I published some Jewish books, um, but was not thinking very hard about PJ. You have to do a P&L, a profit and loss statement for every book before you sign it up in order to make sure that you believe you can make a case that it will be profitable to your publisher and your finance team and so on and so forth. Um, and when I did Jewish books at Penguin, uh, there was no it it didn't depend upon PJ Library taking them, right? The idea was always, oh, we'll sell enough copies through uh, all of the ordinary channels, and if we get a special order, which is what PJ is, it's a big bulk order. That's a great bonus. And at Carbon, because the trade sales, so that is the bookstore sales uh, and school and library sales, are generally smaller. Whether or not you get a special sale, which is to say PJ Library becomes a much bigger deal. And that makes sense, right? So because I can do books at Carbon about topics that are not going to have as massive an audience as Hanukkah or Passover, right? I'm editing a book right now about the counting of the Omer. Right at Penguin, they're not going to publish a book about the counting of the Omer because that is too niche an audience, and at Carbon we can do that, and that is great. But uh, knowing that it's going to have a fairly niche audience, it makes a potential PJ Library sale uh, so much more important to the profitability of the imprint as a whole. And it's my understanding that we don't need every one of our books to be taken by PJ Library, and we don't have any control over what they take.
Well,
So
that's what I said. I mean,
yeah,
but like if they take one out of four,
yeah,
then you want the four to be PJ potential PJ material.
you want them to have a chance. Um,
Yeah.
and so that does affect how I think about uh, because there are certain things that PJ is and isn't looking for. And again, I can't claim to be fluent into exactly what it is
But
that's going to
Lila,
work for them.
between you and me, it
Yeah.
impinges on your ability to select really good stories that PJ might not take. This is one of the trade-offs.
Yes. I think if I'm going to be
I mean,
acquiring,
sorry, somebody would make the argument
yeah.
that it's not Carbon or Kalaniot
Mhm.
that decides which Jewish books are going to get published. It's really PJ. I'm just throwing that out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, I I do think about uh I do think about what they are going to want when I am selecting books. Um, that is part of my process. I don't know that it's that different from any, when whenever you are editing books, you are giving thought to what the market for them is going to be. So the number of times that I have worked on a book and we have a cover or a title that's done, and then Barnes and Noble says we don't like the cover, um, and if you change the cover we would take 5,000 copies, and if you don't change the cover we'll take 0 copies. And then you know what, the vast majority of the time we go back and we change the cover. And there there's some, like, obviously that is a place where the retailer, the buyer, um is directing the artistic
Mhm.
output
It's
that the publisher is
for,
making.
for me, it's a little bit of an oy vey thing.
Yeah.
Because if we go back to class and you talked about, I want my hat back.
Mhm.
So imagine say, oh, what we really need now for our fall 2027 is a story about a bear who wants his hat back and eats a rabbit.
Yeah.
If that was Candlewick's mission,
Yeah.
well, anyway, you get my point. I mean,
Yeah.
I want to hope that some books, some children's books, get published because they're really good books, and
Yes.
as you said at the beginning, because the story arc is splendid, and because they hit the ground running, and there's twists, and there's humor, and there's irony.
Yes.
This is my dream, and this comes a little bit because I just write.
Yeah.
Okay, and I hope that some Michigan a publisher is going to take one of my stories.
Yeah.
But you have the completely different job
Yeah.
of saying, okay, I'll take whatever fantastic story, but I still have to sell it.
We have to
You know, I
sell
have
it.
to
That's
sell
the
it to people.
right.
And that brings, yeah, so that brings me to my next question,
Yeah.
of course, which is, but you're also an author, and you're a
Yes.
celebrated award-winning author
Thank you.
of 8 books, not so much picture books.
I
You're
have
now
yet
the,
to publish a picture book. I
yeah,
would,
why is that?
you know what? Writing picture books is really hard. I don't know if anybody's aware of that, but writing books,
Everybody who's listened to me over the past 5 years knows.
yeah, I can't tell you how many picture books I've started where I have a fun concept and I can't get to the end in a way that doesn't feel, preachy, contrived, uh, talking down to kids, uh, doesn't have a full plot arc, um, you know, whatever it is. Um, yeah, it's very impressive people. I've worked with obviously tons and tons of picture book authors, and I feel like I'm pretty good at editing a picture book. I'm pretty good at, paginating it, deciding if the art in it is good or what the art needs to be. But maybe someday I'll publish one. I, but yeah, it's hard. I do have a chapter book coming out next year with Nosy Crow, and
Yeah.
that's going to be the youngest thing that I've ever published. So it's still definitely not. I mean, there will be pictures, but it's solidly for 6, 7, 8 year olds. Um, but my hope is to someday have books for every age group so I could go into, because uh, sometimes a school will reach out to me about doing a school visit. And, if it's an elementary school and they really want to bring in one author who can talk to all of their students, and I'll be like, well, realistically, anyone younger than your third grade is not going to be interested in anything that I've published. And so then I'm not a good candidate for that school.
Okay, well, I have a book coming out in 2 weeks, and
Oh, mazel tov.
thank you, and you're welcome to talk about it all you like. You can tell people you wrote it. What do I care?
What's the book? Tell me.
No. The book
No,
is
I don't get
called
to.
Emily Saw a Door, publishing with Penguin Random House, which explains my interest in
Yeah.
background.
It's
And
which imprint at PRH? Sorry, am I way late?
Annie Kelly, Random House Studio,
Great. Perfect.
and it's not a book about Hanukkah.
There are allowed to be books not about
And
Hanukkah.
if you want to talk about my book, I'm gonna send you a waiver. Um, and yeah, so this is about you, Len. So
Okay.
I no, but I am intrigued. We will send everybody home at the
Mm-hmm.
end of our interview,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll have a little tete-a-tete because it's like you said. Mel says that anybody can write picture books. Not everybody can publish picture books.
Yes.
But
Uh,
I will tell, I'll tell you right now why that is, if you want to know.
yeah.
Did you want to know?
I
Okay.
want to know. Yeah.
Okay. So you write basically middle grade and early adult and young adult
Mm-hmm.
and so on, and that's wonderful. But for me, that means that your inner voice, your little Lila,
Mm-hmm.
is 10, 12, 14.
Yeah. Yes.
And maybe something happened in your life when you were 10, 12, or 14 that you are addressing when you write to your
Yeah.
inner Lila.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the answer is if you have a 5-year-old Lila,
Mm-hmm.
then you can write picture books. And if you don't, you have to find it.
Yeah,
It's a problem.
I'd agree with that. I'd agree
I,
with
I,
that.
I only have a 5-year-old inside me, so makes it
Of
easy for
course,
me.
is we actually all have inside of us every version of ourselves who we have ever been or ever will be, right? It's just a question of if you can tap into that version of yourself
I
and
think
what's
that you
and of
have to.
which version of yourself you like to listen to.
Okay, but I think this is just me, right? I think that you have to recognize um, the age at which you were stuck,
Yes,
the age at which, like, I don't write for kids. I write for me.
yeah,
There's a
absolutely.
little Melvin from Ottawa, Canada, um, who um, who is hurt,
Yeah.
and I address this hurt. So I think the answer is if there's a 5-year-old Lila that's hurt, you'll have no trouble writing picture books. And if not, you'll have to find the hurt of the 5-year-old. That's anyway what I believe.
Yes.
You've written at least 8 books that I have counted,
Yeah.
and won lots of prizes. So there's 2 questions. I guess the first question is, if I were in your position,
Yes.
I would not have taken the job with Carbon.
Oh,
I'd
because you
just
would
be
want to
writing
change.
my I'd write
Uh,
I'd be writing my Kishkas out all day.
yeah. That is not me and has never been me. I am I'm not I'm not efficient is what I'm not. So I need to limit the time that is available to me for writing, or I will, I'll get the same amount of time, same amount of writing done if I say, okay, you only have 2 hours to write today, as I will if I say, like, all right, you have the whole day stretching out before you write. You have no responsibilities other than to write. That's not how I get stuff done. Um, and I've always written and edited. There's never been a part of my career where I have been only a writer. Um, I don't honestly know that I would be that well suited to it. I mean, I do have, I have so many ideas for books, and I have far more ideas for books than I have time and bandwidth to actually get them down. And I envy the productivity of full-time writers, the people who have a new book out every year or multiple books a year. I am overcome with envy, of like, how do they do it? And then I'm like, well, because that's what they do. That is the whole thing that they do. Um, and but I don't know. I don't believe that if all I did was write that I'd be all that productive.
Yeah, but it is a kind of a look. I wanted to be a writer since I was 20.
Yeah.
I'm 74. I did everything in my life
Yeah.
except what was important. And
Yeah.
10 years ago, I had this wake up call. And
Yeah.
so it is a little bit of a cop out. I mean, if you are such a great writer, which you are, and everything you've told me is a little bit, I wouldn't say suspicious, but if I can envision a Lila that would structure her day
Maybe.
and be a full-time writer. Who
Listen,
represents you?
I'm with Steve and Barbara at Inkwell.
Okay. Sorry, I cut you off.
Listen, here's the thing. Again, don't know if anybody knows this. Writing is hard. Uh, so, and I'm not saying that editing is easy. It's not. Um, but I I don't go into editing with the sort of existential self-doubt that often surrounds writing. With writing, sometimes you feel like this is a problem that I'm not able to solve, right? You get writer's block. I'm not up for the task. And I don't feel that with editing. Sometimes I feel with editing like, oh, it's challenging, or sometimes it's boring, or sometimes it's overwhelming, the sheer amount of work, whatever it is there. Um, but uh but I never lose my faith of like, oh, I'm capable of doing this. Um, and writing, I know I've written a bunch of books, and I have faith that I'll continue to write more books, God willing. But yeah, but it's hard, and I like having something in my life where I also make a living, and that feels a little more approachable. I think if every day all I
It,
had in front of me was something that felt really hard, oof, yeah.
okay, well, I mean, at least you feel for us authors.
I feel so
Um,
much for authors, and
most editors don't are not authors.
that's true.
Um, Annie Kelly doesn't write. Harold Underdown
Yeah.
doesn't write. Most of the editors that I know and have interviewed are not authors.
I
Um,
feel a lot for authors, and then it also, I think, it makes me. It's ironically, I'm so much slower in responding to submissions. You'd think I'd be faster because I know how terrible it is to be out on submission and how annoying it is when you don't hear for months. But in fact, it makes me slower because it's like I really, I think about the author behind every book and I know how hard they worked and I want to give them feedback that's going to be, useful to them. And yeah. Mm. It's,
so now is a good time to talk about your recent book,
yes.
the museum book. And
Yes.
I'm interested because I'm trying to write a picture book about the museum themed story.
Ah,
So tell us all
amazing.
about it. The
All right,
Museum of
Museum of
Lost
Lost
and
and
Found.
Found. Yeah. This came out with Abrams, um, and it was my second book with Maggie Lerman there, and my third middle grade book. Um, so this book is about a girl named Vanessa who her best friend has recently stopped being her best friend and she doesn't know why, and she discovers an abandoned museum in her town and she starts filling the museum with artifacts of her friendship with Bailey and categorizing them and organizing them and displaying them. And then along the way, she is joined by a ragtag group of other kids in her neighborhood who each are bringing their own memories or projects to display in this museum. Let's say do it.
It's incredible. Do you know where the idea came from?
Yeah, let's see. Well, I, yes. So I published a book a few years back called The Campaign, which is about a kid who runs her babysitter's campaign to become mayor of their city. Um, and so I was looking at trying to give kids some sort of civics education because I felt like maybe a lot of kids aren't actually getting any understanding of how government is supposed to work or what our elected officials role is. Anyway, so I wrote the campaign, um, and um, and I have always really liked books like that where kids are doing things that you expect only adults get to do, right? So a kid is running a political campaign, or a kid is principal or president, or a kid is a lawyer or an investigator or a spy. Um, I love that. And so then I was talking to my very dear friend Kendra, who is she's editorial director at Simon and Schuster Books for Young Readers, and is also one of my best friends. And so I was like, I want to find something else like that. Like, what is another thing that kids could do that you'd think kids wouldn't do? And um, and she was like, well, it has to be something that you care about and, want, like a place where you would want to spend time. And we were getting ice cream, which is one of our favorite foods. And she was like, how about an ice cream factory? How about you have a story about kids who you would like, they discover an abandoned, rundown ice cream factory in their town and they start running it, and you wouldn't expect kids to run an ice cream factory. And for whatever reason, I was like, logistically that seems hard, like the machinery, I can't wrap my head around it. And but something about the idea of an abandoned rundown ice cream factory, I was like, okay, but what if instead it was an abandoned rundown museum, which is also a thing that I like. So that's how I came up with the Museum of Lost and Found. And yeah, I think I have a note in the acknowledgments that says something like, you know Kendra, here's your abandoned ice cream factory, book at long last, or something like that.
At the end of the story, does she renew her friendship with the?
Sort of. Um, I think this is going back to what I was saying earlier about how in a book we started with a character who wants something. In this case, she wants her friend back. And then the motor driving the book is the character going out in pursuit of that thing, right? So she's doing all these things to try and win her friend back and to try and understand what went wrong. Um, and then at the end of the book, as I said earlier, either they get the thing that they were driving towards, or they don't get the thing, but they get something else that they have discovered along the way. And I would say this one is more she gets something else that she's discovered along the way, and I think she gets some clarity as to what happened between her and her friend, and they mend fences somewhat, but also there's the understanding of it's not going to go back to the way that it was, which what she starts out really wanting is like, I just want to erase whatever it is that happened, and I just want to go back to the way things were, and that's not going to happen.
And this very esteemed publisher published it even though they weren't interested in books about kids creating museums.
I don't know that they weren't interested in books about kids creating media. They never
Well,
expressed anything to me about.
it wasn't on their wish list.
No, no, I don't think they were
So
looking for
I,
it.
so I really think that I'm going to ask you now, in summary of this wonderful discussion. I hope
Mm-hmm.
you had a good time.
Yeah,
Um,
I
to
love talking about my work, so I'll do it anytime.
I love talking to you about the children's books. So the I think that my best advice is always going to be write things that you care about intensely,
Yes,
and then if you're very lucky, because you have to be very lucky in this, somebody who may not have been interested in a book about kids building their own museums or ice cream factories will say, "Oh my goodness, what a story arc! Wow." So what is we have now thousands of potential authors
yeah.
dying to send Carbon children's manuscripts.
I hope they
Just
will.
yeah, a couple of tips.
For manuscripts to send to me.
Yeah, either a subject or the process or anything you want.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm slow at responding to submissions and I want to get better. It's only because I'm doing too many things. Um, but I want good submissions. I'm always looking for good submissions, and one of the great things about Carbon is that I don't I don't need submissions to be agented, which I did at PRH, so I can get
Mhm.
submissions uh, from anybody who has a good story. Um, and I guess the tip I always give aspiring writers is, um, you know, be professional, which you'd sort of think would go without saying, but I think for many people, writing is so much of it's such a dream. Yeah, having a published book is such a dream, and this feeling. I remember before I had a published book, it's like I would do anything to sell a book. Like they don't even need to pay me; I would pay them. Right, and sort of the understanding of like this whole thing is a business. Again, not the writing part. The writing part is a passion, it's an art. It's a creative outlet. But the publishing thing, as soon as you start submitting your work to a publisher, um, it's a business. And so you're writing business correspondence, and you're writing business correspondence about something that's very near and dear to you. Um, but but you kind of have to treat it as here's a, you know, it's sort of like a job application. Um,
It is kind
and
of dichotomous, isn't it? I mean,
yes,
on the one hand, write your kishkas out, ignore the market, ignore all
yes,
external influences, ignore PJ Library, ignore booksellers and what have you. And on the other hand, write something that the market wants.
right. And that's where you really, I mean, you literally, I think, have to switch hats. It's you. start with one and then you move to the other, and but you don't want you don't want that business perspective getting in there too soon, I don't think, because then it just like shuts down the creative process. Um, but you know, yeah, understanding that I am a human, and also I am, you know, I am doing a job here, and so when you know, when I have to pass on a manuscript, there's never like some sort of personal vendetta there, you know, it's just kind of a business decision. Um, and that can be hard to accept. Trying to think what else. You know, in terms of topics, as I said, I like fun, I like whimsy, I like joy, I like characters with a lot of, you know, attitude who are um we uh the holidays are always good for us, the big holidays. You know, we try and do a new Hanukkah book every year, a new Passover book every year, a new High Holidays book every year. So those are always opportunities, though it's also challenging to find new takes on these holidays where we've done so many. So when you can find a new take on it, it's like that's so great. That's so exciting. That's um, you know, I like a good picture book biography, if there's a real story there, uh, and you know, if it's about somebody who we haven't already heard about them a zillion times, right? Like at this point, it's pretty hard to do another Ruth Bader Ginsburg picture book biography. It's been done very well, you know, but there are so many people out there where they have interesting stories and we don't know about them. Um, I love learning about the experiences of Jews all over the world, and um, you know, Jewish identity in ways that's very different from what I have experienced, and sort of getting to show kids about the, you know, just the breadth of ways that there are to be Jewish in this world. Um, I just finished up editing a graphic novel about the Jews of Iraq. I hadn't known anything about the Jewish community that had been in Iraq. That was really interesting. Um, yeah, and not that it needs to be all over the world, you know, even within the United States, just all of the different ways that there are to be Jewish. Um, and yeah, and I think, you know, that it doesn't have to be super, you know, religious or observant or um, you know, it doesn't need to feel like Hebrew school. Um, you know, just tell a good story that kids are going to be interested in. That feels like a good goal to me.
That's wonderful. So I should add that you know, if you Google Leila Sales, you will find your wish list,
Yeah.
and you're open to submissions
Yes.
from agented and unagented authors
Yep.
on a wide variety of Jewish themes, and I think that that is fantastic. So I wish you lots of mazal, lots of luck in your new job,
Thank you.
and and also as an author when you find the time.
Thanks.
And we're going to send everybody else home, and we're going to talk for another 2 minutes.
All right.
Um, Come back and go back and come in, so I can thank you personally. And this was wonderful. So again, I'm the same Mel Rosenberg, the host of the Children's Literature Channel, and I've been speaking to the one and only Leila Sales, who is also an award-winning author of 8 wonderful children's books, and also the new head honcho of Carben. It's been wonderful. Thanks so much, Leila.
All right. Thanks, Mel. Bye.